When your sister drowned, what did your mother do? How did she find out that Adriana had drowned?
I can't remember.
All right.
All right, so that's direct. We're going to show you cross in just a little bit. How do you cross this kid? He's just so young, and I got to say adorable. Not that that has anything to do with his credibility. Out comes the defense attorney. All right, so let me jump first to my former prosecutor, Jason, and we're going to talk more about the credibility of young witnesses, not to mention the psychological impact on the child with Robbie. But let me just ask you very specifically. I think, and it's rare, you know, Jason, for me to give kudos to a prosecutor if I don't have to, but I think he's doing an absolutely splendid job with this child, leading only when necessary, very compassionate, but really eliciting what at least some could argue are hard facts.
I would definitely agree with you, Jamie. He's very gentle with the boy, and as you pointed out, he's not necessarily suggesting the answers to the boy in asking leading questions. And I think the jury is really going to appreciate that the testimony really is coming from the boy's mouth and not from the prosecutor.
Yeah, of course, as defense attorney, I argue that it's coming from the preparation, but we'll get to that in just a little. All right, Jason, I know you were jumping to get in there, but I had to hear more from this kid. He says that his sister got into the pool herself. That contradicts the initial story. Mom's running from the house. She's not running from the house. And these are key facts in the case. He's only 7. He's experienced a traumatic event, and now he's in this incredibly stressful situation. Most adults can't handle it. So what do you think? How can you base a case on the testimony of this kid, let alone put him through it in the first place?
Well, first of all, I can assure you that the prosecutor would have preferred to have other witnesses or additional witnesses rather than solely the testimony of a 7-year-old. But the question becomes whether or not this witness can testify. That means, does he appreciate the difference between a truth and a lie? What is the first thing a witness does before they utter a word in court? And that is to raise their right hand and take an oath to tell the truth. What happened in this case is prior to trial, the judge held a hearing and heard testimony from a psychologist that met with the child, and ultimately the judge made a decision that this boy was able to appreciate the difference between a truth and a lie, and therefore he's able to offer competent testimony in the trial.
All right, well, we're going to talk a lot more about that. Jason have her own physical and emotional and mental challenges. All right, Jason, let me come over to you now and talk about the law. It is possible, isn't it, that the child had suffered some abuse, but was not murdered, was not drowned. And I hearken back to what my colleague Lisa Bloom said earlier this morning on Open Court, and she's worked on a lot of these kinds of cases. For murder to be the first sign of a problem between mother and child, that's rather unusual.
It is rather unusual, and in this case, I think what the prosecution is doing is concentrating on the facts of that day. They might be suggesting there might have been a little prior abuse, but I think what they're saying is the bruising that was found by the first responders on the child's forehead was caused by the mother that morning as part of the supposed punishment that she was meting out to the daughter.
Yeah, and of course there are always things the jury doesn't hear about that we are privy to, and that's part. Right, some real heroes in that courtroom desperately trying to save this little girl, but they could not. Let me jump back up to Jason. Jason, let me ask you this, as our prosecutor in the House, what do you make of all of this evidence about bruises to this child's body and how they may have gotten there and how it might relate to the defendant's case?
Well, I think clearly what the prosecution is trying to do here is to rule out that the bruises came from any of the life-saving measures that were utilized to try to resuscitate this woman.
But what's the suggestion then?
The suggestion is that the mother caused those bruises when she actually was drowning the little girl.
Or perhaps earlier in the day.
That's correct.
All right.